నమస్కారం ప్రజావాహినికి స్వాగతం. నేను అర్చనా స్వామి. ఈరోజు లైఫ్ స్టైల్ కార్యక్రమంలో కోవిడ్-19లో విద్యారంగంలో వస్తున్న మార్పులు, దాని వలన మన విద్యార్థులు ఎదుర్కొంటున్న సమస్యలు, వాటిని ఏ విధంగా ఎదుర్కోవచ్చు తెలుసుకుందాం. మనతో ఉన్నారు సునీతా ప్రభు. సునీతా ప్రభు, షీ ఈజ్ ఎ టెక్నాలజిస్ట్ by profession and an educator by passion. She has started Cogitator Education, a learning center, in 2016 and has been relentlessly working to improve and educate lives of many young minds and inspire them to redefine their educational goals. Welcome Sunita Prabhu for my show.
Thank you for having me.
How has learning changed in COVID-19 and how are educators and students coping up with the new change?
These are very uncertain times, and definitely learning in education has changed over the past 3 months for students, teachers and parents. First of all, I think students are definitely missing going to school, meeting their friends, having all the extracurricular activities, and while they might love the fact that they're having to control their schedule based on their pace, they just have to brush their teeth and join the online classes. There are certain aspects of online learning that kids do enjoy, but all in all I think definitely the kids are missing school. As teachers, definitely we miss the lively face-to-face interaction and the cues we get from the kids when they are actually learning well. And all of a sudden, all the methods that teachers relied on, it could be projects, workshops, just the conventional board and chalk way of teaching, tying stories together for concepts, all of these have to be packed into one online module. I think that's a bit challenging, but in general I should say, if you look at the situation in India right now, the teachers, the schools and the students have all adapted quite well. I think that's a pleasant surprise.
Adaptability is definitely our strength. And in today's world, distance learning and video learning has become the prominent ways of learning, and technology has played and is playing a major role in this advancement. So as a technologist, what do you think about the changes are going to happen right now or happening, and is it going to sustain and stay for longer?
Sure, I think technology is the single most reason why you see continuity in learning today during the pandemic. If you look at the pre-COVID times, there were schools with good infrastructure, or in schools that did have good infrastructure with respect to projectors or other tools, online material. They were not utilized as much as they could have been. But now, because that's the only option we have, we see students and teachers relying and leveraging content that already exists out there, and sometimes even picking the best of the plethora of stuff that exists. So there are many ways the online material has helped us change, bridge the gap in learning. They're not just about hours and hours of calls and meetings on a platform. It could be Zoom, Microsoft Teams. Online learning doesn't mean just participating in those video conferencing calls. But are we looking at leveraging a lot of education tools that exist out there? Simple ones could be, as a math teacher, right? We use GeoGebra for geometry animations. We use Desmos, another tool, to help students visualize how they learn coordinate geometry. So these are really being leveraged well. But the whole caveat there is this going to be the norm going forward? In other words, is the whole situation going to change from a teacher-centric classroom to just a virtual classroom? I definitely don't think so. I think in future what's going to happen is all these, the content or the curated content will complement what the teachers are teaching, and they're definitely not going to just replace it. So what seems like a revolutionary change now, I think it will soon it has to become an evolutionary change, because when we talk of online modules, there has to be a bit of personalization for the student. The student space has to be taken into account, and to design and develop such an online module, even for the best of the teachers, it's going to take months together. it's here to stay. So I would just like to conclude that this whole situation has given a push for all of us to think of creating good content for our students.
So how far do you think online education is effective, and what are the differences you observe in children being physically in the classroom and in an online session?
Oh well, that's a very interesting topic. So when we talk about online learning, right, there are, I think, two aspects to it. One is the student learning completely online, which means there is no instructor, there is no blended way, there's nobody leading the course. Then that's one aspect of it. And then there is the second category where it is an instructor-led course. Now, when it comes to online learning, definitely there are two sides of the story. The pros, or what the students like about it, is you can access it anytime. It's very convenient. The kids can learn at their own pace, but the danger there is the own pace shouldn't become a motivation to procrastinate, right? That's always there. And last but not the least, the students can, maneuver their learning, okay? But what does all these the flexibility options mean? It means that the student is the main person who is accountable to make online learning successful. They have to be well organized, they have to be motivated, they should manage their time well, right? These are some of the pros. As a teacher, what are the pros of online learning? Well, we can leverage a lot of content, create our own, and sometimes, if teachers are, smart enough to personalize the module as part of online learning, that's the best benefit we can get. Now, on the cons, definitely online learning or remote learning, e-learning, whatever we may call it, may not suit every facet of learning. What if it's performing arts? What if it's sports, or even lab work, right? So there are these aspects that online learning cannot cover. That's one. And the second thing is online learning will be effective based on the temperament and personality of the student. What if there is a child out there who's an introvert? Now, they may not be comfortable asking questions while the session is going on. Sometimes these kids won't even speak up during the class. Now, how can a teacher figure out what is the, whether the delivery is being successful or not? So the teachers have to spend that extra time to build the rapport with students, especially these type of students, and to ensure that they are not left out. So according to me, I think one of the cons of online learning is there can be a sense of isolation that could develop in certain students. The other cons of online learning are they can be huge distractions for a child. When they are on the online mode, there can be a class going on and they would be tempted to look at WhatsApp, Instagram, social media, or all of the others. So parents have to have a bit of, I won't say supervision, but a bit of an eye on what's happening while learning is going on. That's one. And for another con for the student is definitely, the students miss social interaction, the face-to-face interaction that happens. And as a teacher, see, when we conduct classes, when we deliver something well, if it's face-to-face, just by the body language of students, we can judge whether they have understood a concept or not. But in online, the camera may be on, but because of so much that's happening, we can hardly get that cue. Well, in the larger scheme of things, online learning or e-learning is a huge market. It is going to grow multifold in the next 5 years. But there has to be a lot of governance and regulation in this space, right? There are multiple e-learning platforms, each one claiming to equip the child with all that they need, be it for academics or for competitive exams. But right now, there is not a standard quality measure to ensure which of these platforms indeed can deliver. So I think in a nutshell, this is what we can do best with it, and right now we have to make it work. But post-pandemic, right, there's going to be a lot of discussion on how do we intermingle online learning with the regular conventional form of classroom learning that's going to happen.
the age-old syllabus needs to be modified now? Or in what way the pressure for the children in this academic year can be reduced? What changes can be done to make it easier for the children for this particular academic year?
Yes, this is a very pertinent question. First things first, the CBSE board has announced, I think in the first week of June, that they're going to rationalize the syllabus. What does that mean? Are they going to remove complete chapters? Highly unlikely. The learning outcomes will not be removed. I think what the guidelines that are given are that certain repeated concepts or interlinked concepts that are covered multiple times throughout the content, that may be removed, but we have to wait and watch. By July 30th, there is a promise that the rationalized syllabus will be announced, and I think it is a good step. Definitely, if CBSE does it, other boards will follow. We are not sure of the intensity of the rationalization, but definitely those are in the plan. Now, having said that, right, as teachers and learners, when we think about concepts, we can't say we will drop a few this year, because that's going to have a ripple effect on the continuum for higher grades. So I think definitely as a teacher, if you ask me, from grade 7 to grade 10, we can easily introduce the concepts, we can help them understand that. Maybe there will be a small gap in terms of how well they are able to apply those concepts. So the intensity there can be brought down. Now, talking about assessments, right, the way we've been conducting assessments in India is that there is one final high stakes board exam. Everything depends on that. That should definitely change, you know. If assessments take into account the consistency of performance throughout the year, it could be class participation, it could be exhibiting leadership skills, it could be a lot of project work they do. That really has to be re-looked at. And we've learned our lessons, you know, the rush with which the government is trying to postpone the lockdown just to ensure the SSC board finishes their exams. I think those have taught us a lesson that the mode of assessment indeed has to change. That's the immediate thing. But your question on, is this an opportunity to relook at our age-old syllabus or curriculum? That's a very important one. We've got a great opportunity now post COVID-19 to transform the curriculum. What do we mean by that? One, we have to weed out outdated content. Certain things just don't make any sense to students anymore, and use that to bring in a lot of emerging trends, to help kids connect to what's happening with the world right now, and to help them build skills that will make them use those in their future life or careers. In that direction, if we talk about the HRD, right, NCERT is going to propose a roadmap to HRD as part of the National Curriculum Framework. This was an exhaustive exercise that was taken up a few years back to relook at our syllabus. Now, you'll be amazed that it happened. The last time this exercise happened, it was in 2005. It's been 15 years already. So there, I think the dates are around end of this year. I'm not sure of the technicalities, but the promise is that there's going to be a relook at syllabus. They're going to remove certain stuff, introduce certain important aspects like, you know, let's introduce computational thinking. Which is what is one of the skills that kids need from age 8 to age 15. All of this is going to be drafted as part of the National Education Policy end of 2020. But if you ask me, will as part of that NEP 2020, will the curriculum be overhauled? No, definitely. I don't think that's a very ambitious goal, because when we have to overhaul the complete curriculum for a nation like ours, which has the most diverse education system, I think it is politically challenging. Let's not forget that there's going to be clash of ideologies, clash of philosophies when it comes to education. So it's not an overhaul, but as a teacher, and sometimes most importantly as a parent, I feel the overhaul is long due. If not anything, COVID might just accelerate it. Let's hope for that.
What best can be done by teachers, parents and the students to make the learning effective?
So, yeah, it's a very pertinent question. I think for students, it's very simple. Avoid distraction. Try to stay away from devices and multitask, learning with social media. Don't do that. And participate. I think it's very, very important that students participate in the class. See, sometimes it could just be a yes or a no. Even, the nod, the visual nod that students would have in a classroom setup. In an online setup, at least they can say, yes, we are following what you're teaching to the teacher. And it's very important that students question, right? We need to encourage this whole culture of questioning, and our children ought to do that more. And one last thing that I would like to tell students is spend time introspecting. Okay, introspect on when is it that you learn well, what helps you in learning well, where do you keep doing the type of mistakes that you do, and when you are self-aware, because you know yourself the best, you can give these pointers to your parents and teachers, and they can really help you out. And that's how I think even a teacher can help in customized learning for a child. So that's basically it for the students. Now moving on to teachers, I think teachers have this inherent role that they play, right? We can't say, okay, online learning, the teacher is not important anymore. But as a teacher, I think leverage content. I leverage a lot of content that's already there. There are so many beautiful videos, resources. Always leverage that. Leverage the network of teachers that you find. There are many platforms that are solely there for teachers, because we can seamlessly integrate best practices from what a teacher has learned elsewhere. It could be in the country, in the globe, anywhere. And third thing is, please get feedback from your students, right? In online learning, it's all the more important to pause and ask the students, is the pace okay? Is the tone okay? Are they able to hear you? Is it getting too dry? I think I rely a lot on these pointers during online class. And last but not the least, as a teacher, please empathize a lot with the students, especially at these times, because you really don't know what's happening back at home. Because in a school setup, they are all with you, they are whole and soul with you. In the online setup, there may be a fight for resources that's happening between siblings or parents. They could have not had their lunch and they're sitting in sessions back to back. So empathize with students first. I think that's for teachers. And for parents, I'm a parent myself. I keep telling this to me. First thing, right, is to reduce anxiety for parents. There is these fun incidents that are happening, that a teacher is expecting, let's say, 15 students to log in, and suddenly the teacher realizes there are 30 logins. It's because parents are sitting with the students sometimes to check what's happening in a class. Let's not do that. The more anxiety we create about how are the board exams going to be, how is school going to operate this year, is my child scoring, these are not the things we should focus right now. So reduce the anxiety, and when we as parents are less anxious, it gives that breathing space for children to learn naturally. And second most important thing is, please normalize failures. Right? As parents, if we don't encourage our kids to fail, to make new mistakes and learn from them, then we are always building this utopian picture of, everything has to be perfect every time. I think it's never going to happen. So please normalize failure. And one important thing which we all shouldn't forget as parents is to check the online, make it safe for kids to be online. If needed, install those necessary tools and software that will track the online behavior, what sort of sites they are accessing. Please track that, because kids do get lost when they're using the device. So I would just sum it up to these points.
That's wonderful. I think the tips are really helpful, and hopefully that helps all the parents, teachers and the students too. And keeping all this aside, how do you think today's education is leading to employability? That's the biggest challenge you're facing. So how can you connect those dots?
I think there is definitely a grave gap between how we equip our children with education and how that is leading to them thriving in life. Let's take a step back. As a nation, we can be proud of how we have achieved access to schooling, right? So over the past few decades, access to schooling has definitely improved. And then the next step is, how is the quality of the core curriculum, how is that improving? There is still scope for improvement there, but I would say yes, there are measures being taken. At least the way the concepts are being applied and taught is gradually improving. And the last step to this whole story is, okay, we have access to schools, the curriculum has some quality, then how is it helping our children thrive in life, right? That is a major setback for us today. And we see that more as parents, I think, right? We bear the brunt of that when we have to decide what are our kids going to do with these worthless degrees. And sometimes the only two options people see are engineering or medicine. So in this case, first and foremost, I think up to a certain level, having the broad spectrum of knowing it all does work well. But if you look at grade 11 and 12 and beyond, right, our curriculum is sometimes, it is a very ambitious curriculum. We expect kids to know everything academically, but have very little relevance to what is its applicability in the industry. So I would say, one, look at the growth in economy, look at the industries where jobs are, what are the emerging trends, and as educators, as parents, we definitely need to collaborate with the industry. If we don't plan for internships, don't plan for programs within institutions, it should happen seamlessly. It shouldn't be that as a parent I enroll my child in college and I enroll in a vocational course and I enroll the person on some technology path. So today it's all very disconnected. If there could be some regulation on how can all this happen across institutions, then that is the need of the hour. So relevance of what's needed in the industry, collaborate with them, plan for internship programs. These are some of the pragmatic steps we can take. But if you look at children in the high school level, okay, there is hardly any focus on equipping them with skills, right? Transferable skills, communication skills, leadership qualities, okay? Even the basic idea that there is so much beyond just the academic stuff that we study. There we have a lot of work to do as institutions, because today the kids are all over. We are sending kids to various institutions. Here is a soft skill course, here is a public speaking course, then go to school, then go to coaching centers, right? They are kind of lost. If there is a way to integrate all of this in our school curriculum itself, I think that's going to be of great success. I think there could be certain aspects of this that are being planned in the National Education Policy for 2020, but until it's out, we'll have to wait and watch. Even if there are guidelines from the government, the onus is a lot on schools. The onus is on schools, how they implement it. The onus is on us as parents, because some of us come from industry. Now, how are we guiding as mentors to our students on these skills? That is another important aspect. So yes, a lot needs to be done.
We have learned a lot of insights and got a lot of information how our education system is going ahead. So what do you think the long-term effects of Corona is going to be on our education system?
Yeah, I think this pandemic has taught us a lot. Okay, we have to use this opportunity to see if we can fix some of the loopholes in our system, be it the curriculum, the assessment model, the way in which students learn. So we can actually bring in a lot of innovation in all of these areas. But I would like to say that learning does not end with academics or education. What students of today need is the ability to adapt and constantly redefine themselves. So I would say, we should help them become learners for life, and that's a great recipe for success.
మారుతున్న విద్యా విధానం వ్యవస్థ గురించి తన అమూల్యమైన అభిప్రాయాలు తెలియజేసిన సునీతా ప్రభు గారికి ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేస్తూ మన ఈ కార్యక్రమాన్ని ముగిస్తున్నాను.
నాకు ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన ప్రజావాహినికి ధన్యవాదాలు.
నిరంతరం చూస్తూ ఉండండి మీ ప్రజావాహిని. ధన్యవాదాలు.